MMA Made, the best MMA show around the world. My name's Mighty. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, this past weekend, sensory overload, so many fights. We had fights Thursday, we had fights Friday, we had fights Saturday. Ah! Anyways, Thursday, and all of these were in Vegas, by the way, as far as these UFC fights went. 3 UFC fights in Vegas back-to-back. Fight Night 80 in Vegas Thursday night. The Ultimate Fighter finale Friday night. UFC 194 Saturday night. Man, if you're a fight fan, you couldn't ask for more than this. I mean, you could if you're a greedy bastard. But I mean, for the most part, you couldn't ask for more. 3 fights back-to-back. And there were some other fights going on. You had ONE FC and you had RFA. So you had 5 different fight cards within like a 72-hour period. So if you're a fight fan, plenty to watch. Lots to watch for free, too. You didn't have to pay for a lot of it. I mean, you had UFC 194 you had to pay for. The rest of them pretty much for free. Ready to go. So, any case, let's start off. We're just going to recap the 3 UFC fights. Thursday night, UFC Fight Night 80. Main event, Rose Namajunas against Paige Van Zandt. Paige riding that wave. You can call it hype. You can call it what you want. I personally just think that she was outclassed. Rose Namajunas. The hardcore fans, you know, like I said, you can't go in there and expect to make mistakes and Rose not take advantage of the situation. But with that being said, even when Paige was making mistakes and Rose was trying to take advantage of the situation, man, this girl, she's like, I don't know if she's like related to Plastic Man or something, because she was bending backwards and just like in situations that was making me cringe. I don't want to see that. Oh man, arm submissions like that when it comes to the elbow especially, or leg submissions that when it comes to the knee especially, man, they just make me cringe. But she has some heart, let me tell you. I don't know if it's heart or just she's in the zone or whatever it is, but I mean, Rose finally gets the submission in round 5. Coincidentally, not an arm submission. It was a choke, but in any case, Rose gets the victory. Paige Van Zandt, I won't say she's derailed. She's young. She's very young. She has a long ways to go. So I think this is just going to make her stronger. She'll bounce back and get that much better. So we'll see what happens. The next night, main event on the Ultimate Fighter finale, we had Frankie Edgar against Chad Mendes. So we got back-to-back main events with Team Alpha Male alumni. And I gave the edge to Frankie. I thought that he would win this fight. Stylistically, I just thought it was a bad matchup for Chad, Mr. the Mike Tyson of the featherweight division. But, you know, Frankie Edgar is the Rocky Balboa of the featherweight division. All kidding aside, Frankie, the way that he moves in and out, I mean, stylistically, it was just a bad matchup for Chad. I thought it would go all the whole distance and it would be a boring fight, maybe more of a scoring fight, but Blanco! Frankie Edgar knocks out Chad Mendes in the first round. Did not see that coming at all. I didn't even think Frankie possessed that type of power. I mean, part of it was probably just landing it perfectly, and part of it was power. Ask Conor McGregor. He'll tell you about speed and power against precision and timing or whatever the hell that he was talking about. But we'll get that in a second. But in any case, Frankie Edgar gets the W, and he gets to move on and potentially fight next for the belt. But never bank on that. We'll see what happens. I don't think he's going to get the title shot next. It's going to be a rematch against Conor and Jose. So, getting to that, let's get into UFC 194. Oh, backtracking. Hold on. Put the brakes on. Tony Ferguson against Edson Barbosa. Oh, my Lord, was that a fight. That was a fight. I mean, just from beginning to end. The illegal kick, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Tony was trying to kick Barbosa illegally, intentionally. I think it was more him trying to move his foot, and it just caught him. And Tony doesn't strike me as that type of fighter. I mean, obviously, they're both on the ground. He knows that it's a downed opponent, so for him to do that intentionally, I don't personally see that happening, but, you know, who knows. But in any case, luckily, Barbosa was able to get his wits about him. He got to continue fighting. I mean, it was a crazy fight. Ends up going to the second round, and what a war, man. What a war. Was great. Tony Ferguson gets the submission, second round. Man, if you haven't had a chance to watch this fight, I suggest you look it up. It's probably on YouTube. It was free anyway, you know, for the ultimate finale, so I'm sure you could probably find it. But it was a great fight. And then, of course, like I was talking about, the main event. All right, now getting to Saturday for the highly anticipated, long-awaited UFC 194 / UFC 189 rebooted, basically. So it was Jose Aldo against Conor McGregor, main event. But first, let's talk about Uriah Faber. Not a Team Alpha male that is headlining the fight, but probably the main alpha male from Team Alpha Male, the head honcho himself. He was there fighting. Frankie Sands, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. That dude, man, I'm surprised that Uriah didn't, like, call for a chair, get thrown in the octagon, smash it over his head, some WWE style stuff. Because, man, Uriah was hitting him with everything. This dude would not quit. That was a hard fight, man. My hat's off to Frankie. That dude is a tough SOB. So I don't think, even though the fighters always say, oh, you know, I expect a war, blah, blah, I don't think Uriah expected anything like that. That was a tough fight for him. Tougher than a lot of other opponents that he's faced that are a lot higher, you know, name recognition and higher up on the food chain, if you would. So kudos to Uriah. He gets the win. I know he's eyeing the winner between Dillashaw and Cruz. That's coming up in January or February. It's either end of January, beginning of February. He wants the winner between those two. I don't know if he's going to jump up there and get it. You know, one fight. Uriah just lost to Frankie Edgar, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know how MMA math is. Never adds up correctly all the time. Sometimes it's multiplication, division, subtraction, fractions. Who knows? We'll see what happens. In any case, Yoel Romero against Jacare, not quite the fight I was hoping for. This was the fight I was really looking forward to. And it was like 3 different fights in 3 different rounds. You know, Yoel Romero comes out first round looking great. Second round, not so much. The third round pretty much goes to Jacare. It kind of flip-flops, and it's, you know, I don't know. I mean, Yoel gets the W, so hats off to him. But it's just not the fight that I was hoping for. Co-main event, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold. That was a great fight. And honestly, it was a pretty even match going through about 2.5 rounds of it. You know, whether or not Luke Rockhold was winning on the card, you know, on the judges' cards or not, I felt like it wasn't a dominating performance up until that point. And then Weidman throws this spinning back kick, and that's when everything gets messed up. He misses it. Luke takes advantage of him, gets him down, takes his back, gets position, gets mount, and pretty much beats the living hell out of him. I don't see why. I believe it was Herb Dean that was reffing that fight. I don't see why he didn't stop it. He typically is one of the best in the business. He hears the clackers, you know, for the 10 seconds, and I know it's a title fight and there's a lot on line, but no one would have been upset if he stopped. Well, Chris's corner probably would have, but other than that, you know, he was getting beat up. I mean, you could see him when he gets up after the third round. He's stumbling. He could barely make it back to his corner. I actually expected him to stop it in between the rounds. That doesn't happen. It goes to a fourth. Luke just pretty much finishes off what he was doing at the end of the third round, gets the stoppage, and no! That means AKA has 2 titles now. Middleweight, light heavyweight. Kane's coming up for the rematch against Verdum sometime in February. So AKA has the potential of having the 3 top weight classes, the UFC titles. I don't think in modern day MMA that's ever been the case where they have one camp has 3 titles, especially in the 3 consecutive weight classes. I don't think any camp has had any of 3 weight classes of titles anytime, but I could be mistaken. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. Put it in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter if you would. Whatever you want to do, let me know. I'm just going on the fly. So in any case, main event, Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo. I mean, what can you say? What can you say? Conor McGregor, people are still going to hate him. People are still going to hate him. But the guy came in, he ran his mouth, and he backed it up. I don't care. I'm not mad that Conor won. I'm not mad that Jose lost. If it was vice versa, I would have been the same way. The only thing that I feel bad about is the way Jose, it's not the way that Jose lost, it's how fast he lost. It was opportunity. McGregor capitalized. Now he owns the fastest knockout in UFC history in a title fight, 13 seconds. He trumps Ronda Rousey's 14-second win, which most people probably thought that wouldn't have been beat in many, many years, if ever. And now it didn't even hold up longer than a year. So, I mean, what are you going to say? You can't take anything away from Jose, what he's done over the past 10 years. I personally feel, give him the rematch. And if it is the same, I would be super pissed. I'd be bummed out. I'm not trying to pay $60 for these Mike Tyson fights. These modern-day Mike Tyson fights. Actually, I would. I don't care. It was crazy. I went insane when that happened. I couldn't even believe it. And the way the camera was filming it live, you could barely. It was hard to see the punch. It was hard on all the other cameras, all the other angles. You can see it perfectly. The one camera that's showing it live on pay-per-view, you can barely see it. So I didn't know what the hell happened at first. I see Jose fall down like a freaking sack of logs. I don't know who puts logs in a sack, but in any case, I think I was going to say a log or a sack of bricks, but we'll go with sack of logs for now. There's the new one. Hashtag sack of logs. So in any case, he falls, couple hammer fists, couple rock, paper, scissors to his dome, and good fight, good night. And new, technically undisputed. He was interim, but now it's unified. He takes that. Man, I mean, love him or hate him, McGregor puts asses in the seats. He sells tickets. Biggest gate in UFC history in the United States, 10.1 gate. Put this into perspective. I believe the highest gate ever is 12.7. That's the Bell Center. And that was with GSP fighting Jake Shields, Jose Aldo fighting Mark Hominick. I believe that's the biggest gate ever. That stadium holds 55,000 people. The MGM Grand only holds about 17,000. You're talking 1/3 of the capacity. And they only missed it by, less than $3 million. That's ridiculous. So, I mean, Conor's only going to do bigger and better things. We'll see. I'm interested to see what the guy's going to do. Like I said, let's see the rematch. If Conor beats him again, he beats him again. But let's just see a fight. Let's see at least a half a round. See if Jose can do something, or is Conor in his head too much? Is Conor his kryptonite? What's the deal? Sometimes you get these matchups, and as much as I hate to say it, but like Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn, I mean, that's just, Frankie Edgar is BJ's kryptonite, man. Just could never get it going. And there's a couple matchups out there like that. But in any case, all right, well, let's talk about what we got going on this coming weekend. We've got the twofer. You've got World Series of Fighting on Friday, and then you have UFC on Fox in Orlando Saturday. We'll start with Saturday. We'll just talk about the main event. It's actually in Las Vegas, the World Series of Fighting home base, at least for the time being. And it is Palmer against Almeida. Palmer is a big favorite on this. I want to say he's almost like a 6 or 7-1 favorite on this. This is what I gotta say. Palmer's a great fighter. He comes out of Team Alpha Male, so he's training with some of the best, especially in his, the lower weight classes. That's what they really thrive on down there. The bantamweights, featherweights, the lightweights. He actually fights in featherweight. He is the current and reigning champion in the World Series of Fighting for the featherweight division. His nickname is The Party, and that's a very good possibility of what he was doing last week. I saw him come out for at least 2 fight corners, because he was out there. I want to say he came out with Paige, and he might have came out with Uriah. I know I saw him twice. I know there was other fighters from Team Alpha Male besides Chad Uriah and Paige Van Zandt. So he had to get to Vegas minimum probably Wednesday and didn't leave at least till Sunday. He should be in camp right now. And then this week should be the winding down and trying to peak and whatnot. So that's something to consider. Almeida, jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's no secret he's going to want to take this to the ground. He's 17-5, and of those 17 wins, 12 are by submission. Most of them are rear naked choke. He likes to scramble, take your back, and choke you out. I know Jason's a very well-rounded fighter, especially on the ground with his wrestling and whatnot. He's 10-1. His one loss is by submission. Granted, it wasn't rear naked choke. It was actually by a guillotine. So we'll see what happens. In any case, that is in Vegas, Friday night, World Series of Fighting number 26. The following night, UFC on Fox. Solid card, especially for free. We got the big boys banging on this one. You got Alistair Overeem against Junior Dos Santos. We got our boy out of the 209, Nate Diaz against Michael Johnson. And then the main event, you got Rafael Dos Anjos against Donald Cerrone. And that is actually for the lightweight title. Donald Cerrone is on a tremendous wave right now. He's fighting on an 8-fight win streak. And his last loss is to the guy he's fighting. So that's an interesting matchup right there. Dos Anjos, great fighter. Don't get me wrong. He's coming in. I want to say he's about a 2.5 favorite on this to Cerrone's, 2-1 underdog status on this, I believe, how he comes in. I think I'm going to go with the upset pick on this as well. I think even though Cerrone typically stays really active and he fights like every 36 hours, he actually hasn't fought in like 6 or 7 months, so he should be fully rested. I think that's key. Staying active is very important, but also you got to let your body heal. So physically, as long as he didn't get any injuries in camp that we don't know about, physically he should probably be about the best he's been in a while because his body should potentially be fully healed. So fully healed, fully rested Donald Cerrone, I can only anticipate the best out of him. I know that one of his wins, of his 8 wins, was a split decision over Bendo. A lot of people thought he lost. But putting that aside, of his 8, 4 have been finishes, 4 decisions. So it's a 50-50 on finish rate to decision in his last 8 fights. I don't know. I think it's possible that Cerrone could finish Dos Anjos, but it'll be interesting to see. I think that Cerrone overall has fought higher level of competition in his career compared to Dos Anjos. So I think that is one benefit. And there has been a lot of changing of the guard this year with all the different fighters that have lost their titles. We have Weidman and Jose just this past weekend. You got Ronda. Who else has lost their title? Anthony Pettis lost his title earlier too. Rafael Dos Anjos. So there's definitely some fighters that have been losing their titles and changing of the guard and the belt passing on to the next person. I mean, I won't be mad whoever wins, but I think I will go with Cerrone on this fight. I'll pick the upset fight, and I'm also going to take Almeida against Palmer on World Series of Fighting the previous night. Those are my 2 picks. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get back on Counter Move again. I had a fun time this past weekend. First time I ever got to play. Flying Brian set up a game for us and amongst about 18 other people of his friends. So it was cool to check that out. I've been meaning to play all these, 2 years, year and a half, whenever I started interacting with Counter Move on Twitter. So that was fun. So last but not least, I do want to take a quick moment and thank everybody that has supported me along the way. I hit a milestone during this past week. One of the shows hit 5,000 views. It's hard, man, trying to sell myself. I don't have a whole bunch of fighters on. I don't, bring people on the show or interview people, so I have to sell myself. That's what you guys watch. All 11 of you, think it's up to 11 now. Only got 5,000 views because 11 of you, watched it 600 times or whatever it is. That's what happened. But in any case, I appreciate all those 600 views for each of you 11 followers of mine. But all joking aside, I do appreciate everybody that gives me love and support. And I want to give a shout out to all the sponsors that have helped me along the way. Unique Kennels, Living Fat, Mama's Boy Apparel, and Design Effects. You can find all of them on Twitter amongst different areas of social media. And don't forget to subscribe on the good old YouTube channel so you can always stay up with all the current stuff. And you can look forward to some new stuff coming up next season when I bring it back. I should probably be back around the end of January, so I'll be gone for about 5 weeks or so on break. I know last week I also said I was going to give something away, do a little giveaway. I'm going to hold on to that. I got something cool. It's a fight banner replica from Rampage Jackson that Living Fat did. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not even going to show it. You go back in some old pics maybe on Instagram or Twitter and see what I'm talking about. But we're going to hold that to next season when I start new and fresh for Season 5. I have a couple goodies ready, all right? So thank you so much for watching. Have a great night. See you in 2016.